Boards, games, boards, games. We might be talking about boards, games, and other stuff, but we're not gonna shout. Here I have John Campos as a guest. They're
Wait,
more
over there.
recent than all the rest. I know that's kind of not saying much. I'm going to say they're not a person I can touch because we're only meeting digitally. But it's the world that we live in. It's still cool that we get to talk through a screen. Hello, John De Campos. How are you
Hi.
this
Good. How
morning?
are you? Good.
I
Good.
am
Good.
generally well, thank you. I've been doing wee bits of yeah, I had a double coffee as well myself this morning. I mean, it's a lot later for me. You are here at, yeah, 5 a.m. That's kind of ridiculous. I wouldn't be. What's inspired you to get up at 5 a.m. to join a stream with not that many viewers?
That's the commitment. Okay, I'm here. I need to promote this new board game that we're trying to get raised. We're raising money for on Kickstarter, and also, just to be real with you, I've actually been trying to pivot my schedule towards waking up around 5 in the morning anyway.
Really?
Yes, yeah. I have a dog who likes to walk. I have a child who needs to go to school, and had been doing a regiment where I was waking up really early just to get a little bit of exercise and get some stuff done in the morning before things start waking up. I did it for like 6 months and it turned out pretty okay, but I kind of fell off the wagon. So, maybe this will be the start of me getting back on target.
Amazing. So tonight maybe you'll be going to bed at 10 a.m. I mean 10 p.m. your time, and so you actually get your 7 hours or however. How much do you sleep a night typically?
It's about 6 hours usually. But I have
So
my caffeine. And as long as I have that, then I will survive. I can make it.
brilliant. Well, as always, it is 10 a.m. UK time, and as I like to say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Episode 769. Who is John De Campos? Now, I had heard you on a couple of podcasts before, but I listened to them again. Just you're doing a lot of stuff. You musician, you're an illustrator, you're a father, as you mentioned, you've got a family, and you're spearheading terrible games with these tiny terrors, these little cube like miniatures that you got
Hmm.
people to play with to replace essentially Magic the Gathering tokens.
Yeah.
And now you're coming out with Black Mold, which is, as I couldn't find anything much about it, but it's a game where you've got to hold your breath
Yeah.
while you're taking your turn.
Uh-huh.
That's
Ye-
ridiculous. I love it.
Thank you.
But first of all, let's get into, as I like to start off with, what have you been up to over the past couple of days? Let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. Quickly going over the past day, I've personally been doing a lot of illustrations. So since last night, um, I did all these illustrations. I've got to add in the greens and the reds and some of the details, but someone told me your art sometimes looks rushed, and there's a good reason for that. Because, if I want to do 50 illustrations in less than a day, it needs to be rushed. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's like what I've been doing since yesterday, and yeah, that been doing a quick walk around. Not much else to report. I have a speculative job, which is a very small illustration job, just one picture. And then if it goes well, I might do other art for someone else's game, which is super exciting. Because I've done a lot of art for my own games, but never art for other people's games. And that's something that I've wanted to do. So as long as I can do this to a decent level, then hopefully, like, this is going to be less rushed. Whereas these ones I take, 5 minutes over, this when I'm going to take 3 hours over. So fingers crossed you'll like it. That is me. and Essen preparations. What have you been up to, John? Presumably you're not going to Essen, right?
No, I would love to visit Europe and do board game things. I hope that our company can be successful enough to afford something like that in the future. But for now, we're just getting ready for the Kickstarter campaign. In my personal life, some of my dear friends, and actually one of which is a partner in Terrible Games, my friend Shannon, got married last weekend. That was absolutely lovely. It was beautiful. Unfortunately, my lead singer from my band got COVID because he was the groom at that wedding. So we were supposed to play a show this Saturday and we had to cancel that. That was a bit of a drag. But yeah, things have just been super duper busy. I'm going to 3 weddings in like 4 weeks. Within 4 weeks, I'm going to be going to 3 different weddings. So things have been busy. Kids
So
going back
there's
to
going to be
school.
1 week where is it going to be the Saturday and then the Sunday, like back-to-back weddings?
It's going to be like, last weekend was a wedding, and then there's another one on the 14th, and then there's another one on the 28th. So it's just maybe not in exactly 4 weeks, but in October there's 2, and I went to one last weekend.
Well, I mean, I'm digging the blossoming of love, and hopefully those people will have wonderful lives together, fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like, I mean, at this point, what does it entail? What's the feeling going through your mind? Because this isn't your first Kickstarter. What do you feel like is the most important thing, and how are you feeling right now? Are you a bit anxious? Are you excited? Are you confident? Let me know.
I feel like I could be doing more. It's just really hard to manage everything. The Kickstarter scroll, like the copywriting and everything, I have it laid out, but I haven't done any of the artwork for it yet. We worked with a bunch of really cool content creators who are going to be turning over some stuff for us, which, as you're probably familiar, that's a very interesting sort of economy, this ecosystem we have in the board game world, where, people basically just validate your product. Like in a preview video, they don't actually talk about, they don't want to give a full-fledged review because it's not a final product. So you send it out for people to just kind of show people and say like, hey, this is pretty cool, you should check it out. So yeah, just trying to figuring out the marketing side. We actually hired a marketer this time. We're working with this fellow named Alex. Just kind of hoping the stars align. Maybe we get that sort of that lottery ticket kind of campaign where everything sort of works out, and maybe we get a little bit lucky and we can actually make some money this time around.
I heard you giving props to your partner, Travis, begins with a T, who was a sculptor, and then they could do videos and stuff for your type, for
yeah. That's Tim.
Tim, thank you. And are they still going to be helping you with this one?
Oh yeah, we were at Tim's studio yesterday shooting in his green screen room, setting up, doing something real crazy for the promotional video for the Kickstarter campaign, where the player in the game is actually going to be transported into the game. So you're going to see them dressed as a prisoner, looking around, standing on top of cards with dice flying by, giant dice flying by them.
Upping the production values to something like a proper TV ad.
Yeah. You know what? It's because Tim is a wizard. The capabilities that he has and the equipment that he has, and his skill and talent is all. We had an hour-long phone call where I was like, dude, what can we do? And we were kicking things around with each other, and I was like, are you sure this is possible? He's like, yeah, man, I got it. It's fine. So yeah, we're gonna see. I'm really excited to see how it turns out.
That sounds awesome, and it reminds me of sorts of 80s style, TV shows. I don't know if you've seen the board game Hideous Abominations, and that's got the tagline that goes, Hideous Abominations.
I did see that campaign. Yeah, awesome. I remember that campaign.
It sounds like lots of stuff now are really upping the production values and making it something that you can just get behind. Because, I mean, transporting something into the game, sure, it's a gimmick, anyone can come up with it, but if you can actually pull that off visually, that's going to get me excited. I'd be like, wow, I'm going to back you for £1 just based on that video, no matter what the game's like.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping it all works out. Again, like I lucked out because my other partner Phil, who is my co-designer on Black Mold and also co-design on Token Terrors, he's a professionally trained actor. So
Mm.
we had him play Prisoner White slash player character, and yeah, we shot everything yesterday, and now Digital Magic is going to step in. We're going to see if we get something that lives up to our very ambitious script.
That sounds amazing. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
And I see from the thing it's going live on the 20th of October, so that's nicely a bit past Essen. So hopefully the Essen hype will have died down a little bit and people will be ready for something different at that point.
Oh, that's good. I hadn't actually thought about Essen impacting the Kickstarter landscape much. We just chose October 20th because we wanted to be near Halloween, but
Mhm.
not too early because we still have some catching up to do. But we wanted to try and tap into that spooky season mindset because it is a horror survival game.
Mm-mm-mm. Let's take a step back. I mean, I want to know about you. What do you love? What do you think, for example, is a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant?
I thought about this for a little while, and I'm gonna say cast iron cookware.
Wow. Yeah, I can dig it. It's like just really strong. It keeps the heat in. Why do you pick this thing?
It's predictable. It's it's trustworthy. You can't hurt it, and if you learn how to use it properly, it does everything you need it to do. We don't own a microwave. We don't own an air fryer. We have a stove and an oven. That's what we have. 90% of the things I cook, and I cook I cook dinner for me and the girls, and I cook all my lunches because I work from home. I'm hitting it in the cast iron, baby. I'm in the
Hmm.
cast iron. I'm controlling the heat. I'm looking at zones. I'm using the lid. Uh, I love my cast iron pans.
So you're not someone who goes for a walk. It's mainly about the pots and is that right?
Oh
When you
no,
say
I walk like 10,000 steps a day with my dog.
oh no,
Yeah.
sorry, not walk. I meant walk.
Oh,
WOK.
oh, I actually would love to own a proper wok. I love cooking Asian inspired food. But we don't have a wok. I'll own a wok one day probably. I should get a nice wok. That was a nice bit of punnery there though, but
Sorry about that.
no problem.
Um, but yeah, cast iron cookware. I think also something that allows you to take more pleasure in this act of creation of food for your own nutrition. And I
Mhm.
think there's something really good about knowing exactly what's going on in there because it can be so tempting with today's busy life and maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. I mean, sometimes I feel a bit down, to be honest. Like everything going on in the world kind of gets to me. And I end up just okay, I've got open up a tin, put it into a wee pot and eat it. And maybe adding some peas. That's pretty much all the energy I have to
Yeah.
just add some peas in to make it slightly more nutritional. And but yeah, they've all generally got a bit of added sugar which it doesn't need, some stuff that you don't necessarily want to be in there. Whereas if you're just cooking more from raw ingredients and spices, you can just get something far more wholesome, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do this thing where I buy a big bag of broccoli. I throw broccoli in the pan with some oil and garlic, and I get it nice and soft. On the side, I'm cooking one package of ramen, and then I take some
Mm.
peppers, some onions. I'm mixing it all up. It's getting nice, and then I make a little sauce with some sesame oil and some oyster sauce, and I toss it all into the pan. I don't use the water from the ramen. I don't really like soup in the middle of the day. I like a pile of vegetables with noodles mixed in. Takes like 15 minutes, fills you up, makes you feel good. It's great.
I can dig it. Now let's move on to a few questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation, it's just a questionably quick question section. Meeples or figurines?
I have to say minis. We make token terrors. But to be fair, we're using meeples in black mold. You know what? I think it really just depends on the game. It really depends on the game.
It does, but if you had to, pick only one.
I plan on producing token tears for the foreseeable future if we can become successful. I'm in this tricky kind of rock and a hard place right now where like token tears hit the market and I should be actively promoting and pushing that brand and trying to get people to play it, but we are contractually obligated to release black mold this year. So minis all the way every day because I like the toyification of the industry. I was sitting with my partner Lucas and we were talking about like we would go on these camping trips and stuff when we were younger, we were teenagers, and we would talk about like if we could make toys, what kind of toys would we make? And we would fantasize about making cool, like super articulate X-Men figures and what version of that character they would look like. And not too long ago, we were like, hey, we kind of achieved our childhood dream. We are toy makers. We made the token tearers and their toys, so that's pretty cool.
Nice. It sounds like it's really far more the aesthetic and tactile quality of a board game that draws you to it rather than the rules and mechanisms. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. I will sooner put something on my shelf that is beautiful. Okay, so a great example. Have you ever heard of or seen Escape the Dark Sector or Escape the Dark Castle?
Yes.
I bought that game without understanding anything about the rules just because I loved the way the artwork looked. I took one look at the art package and said, great, buying that. Got it to the table, also liked the game. But if the artwork is not great, like Castles of Burgundy is a really good game, but the artwork kind of leaves me wanting. I got it during lockdown because I wanted a great 2-player game for me and my spouse. And, they got the deluxe edition coming. I bought it because it looks really good and I like the game already. But I probably wouldn't have bought Burgundy on the merits of its artwork if people hadn't recommended it.
That's really interesting. I mean, I feel like I'm probably the opposite way. I'm one of those strange people who would actually be perfectly happy playing a minis game with little tokens moving around. I'm totally the wrong person for your audience because I could happily play War Machine without using their own miniatures.
I know, like little cubes, maybe.
Well, it's the size of the standee matters. So I'd want tokens of different sizes, but like if it was just flat things that just lying on the table so that you could measure the distance and it worked as it was meant to in the rules, I would be totally okay with that.
Sure.
Because for me, I guess I don't. Yeah, there's something nice about moving the stuff and owning that, but for me, it's more about, what does this do? And that kind of excitement of the interactions and the web of rules. That's what really gets me going.
I mean, I'm in there with you. If a game feels empty mechanically, it will probably. I actually get quite annoyed. I really, really don't like games where there's a lot of swing, where all of your previous decisions sort of just get swept under the rug because a bad dice roll or something like that. Not a huge fan of those. But I think the artistry and sort of the imagination that comes to life when you have miniatures that are on like a rendered, sort of, like a battlefield or just they're trying to tell a story. All of those things sort of just immerse you a little bit more. And what I really, really like to see in the games that I own is the care and the passion that goes into delivering that experience in a way that the creator feels their vision is being transferred to the players. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, I can totally get that, because when you've got something where I think it's Thomas, but yeah, made Escape the Dark Castle and Sector, when it's something that's one thing a year or one thing every couple of years, you can lavish so much more attention on it. And when you've got the budgets, I mean, sure, there's something nice about me saying, okay, I'm going to get this game out and I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff and hopefully people enjoy my games. But I'm not going to deny that if I could spend, the entire year on just the one thing, then for sure it would be even nicer. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes it's just like, I want to get stuff out, and I've kind of accepted that. For me, I'm happy for someone then to help me take it to the next step, like another publisher. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as far as like executing the visual style and the artwork that comes along with the game, I think that there's it's a full spectrum of like it depends on what the game is trying to accomplish. If you're creating a faster game that's cute and fun and is a bit of a time killer, or if you're trying to market to a younger audience, you can do things that don't require quite as much labor intensive, just like
Mm-mm.
zoomed in detail with lots and lots and lots of just like labor hours going into the illustrative side of things. um I think about there's a local artist who does these show posters around here for concerts, and her style is, it looks like it's taken right out of a kid's book. I don't, you know, it's not all, I don't know if it's always like super duper great for like rock shows and stuff like that. There's a lot of different directions and all that stuff is very subjective. Um, but every time I see her stuff, I'm like, man, you should get into doing children's books because your art style is so perfect for that. And it does, it looks very fast. But I think it all depends. There's different flavors for different projects.
Mm-mm-mm. Have you seen the what I think it's called, Boy, the Horse, the Mole, and the Fox? They
No,
might
but
be in a different order. So this is a book by someone, and it's done with these beautiful illustrations, although they look like they've been done really quickly, but with quick washes, and it looks like it's been drawn with a paintbrush with ink and watercolor. And even on one page, there's literally a stain of a coffee cup. And the whole book is about acceptance and acceptance of your own mistakes. And so it's really perfect for that, because the whole book is about kind of loving each other. And it's not something that so sometimes you've got real problems, and no book's going to solve that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're struggling to eat, don't get me wrong, like a book's not going to help you. But if you're just feeling, oh, stuff's a bit rubbish, and you're just feeling a bit down, sometimes just something that says, hey, people are nice, and just accept yourself and be brave and ask for help, and these
mhm.
kinds of little epithets. I think there's something lovely about just getting that into the world and not worrying too much about the quality. But again, I think you're completely correct that when it's appropriate, having that labor intensive stuff like you've done, the extreme detail, that can really make you want to gaze at the thing, maybe even gaze at the abyss, and have the black mold, and have the black mold gaze back at you.
We hope so. Yeah, I have this habit. I get this note all the time that people tell me that my stuff is very busy, that it has this like Where's Waldo sort of quality to it, where it's hard to find like a single subject matter within the image to focus on because you're sort of like your eyes are just moving all over the place, finding all these little details. And I'm like, yeah, you know, if you want to call that a criticism, that's fine. I that this is the
That sounds
intention.
like a great thing to me.
Yeah, I personally just do not like when I ask for people to give me feedback on art and they just tell me it's busy and then do not elaborate beyond that particular turn of phrase. Um, and for the stuff that you're creating, I think it's great because you're staying like goal oriented, and that's just part of your process. Maybe you'll pump out that game where you spend a whole day on a single illustration, or you have a box cover or something that takes you a week
Hmm.
to produce. But for right now, while you're on that journey of just like figuring out what your visual identity is as an artist and illustrator as it pertains to your game projects, this is just where you're at.
Mm,
You know,
mm, mm.
I've done smaller things like I did a card game recently for a creator that's the name of the game is Spellbook, and I pumped out 20 cards worth of illustrations in about 6 days. And it by no means was rushed, but I just got really, really excited about the game after playing it. I thought the mechanics were really interesting. I really, really liked that I was in lockstep with a creator who was stepping into the game publishing world for the first time. He's local. We met in person because he works at a game store that's carrying token tears, and I was just really, really excited to get to work on this thing. Um, and I could have spent way more time on it. You know, it's a dueling wizards game. We know what the landscape of the dueling wizard card game looks like. You have the biggest game in the world, Magic the Gathering, right in the exact same arena. So, you know, I passed off the stuff to the creator. He was really happy with the art. I thought it was fun. I liked it. But, you know, different projects call for different things. But I think, you know, you're probably on the right track. I think that the mindset of just staying goal oriented and trying to put out more things, you know, just consistency is a huge factor in finding your style and landing on something that is consistent.
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate that encouragement because, you know, I assume that it happens to you, that you get all this, oh, is anyone going to like this? Are people going to enjoy this? Is this fit for purpose? Is it clear enough when you talk about how busy it is? Like, the only downside of busyness is that then it might make it a little obstructive for the function. And I don't, unless you're actually playing the game, it's hard to say whether it is too busy or not. Do you know what I mean? You need to actually play the game to say, well, at that point, it's kind of about the graphic design. Maybe you kind of bring something into more focus, fade out the background, whatever. But I assume you have some. Yeah, what's your biggest fear with your projects? I want to ask you.
I have sort of this idea in the back of my head that like trying to create a game that is for everyone is kind of a mistake.
Of course.
A lot of people, especially in the conversation of the indie publishing space, when looking at the landscape of Kickstarter, talk about like, oh, well, your logo should be a little bit more digestible. You should probably chill out this artwork maybe, or, you know, this doesn't look shelf ready for a retail space because it's got this, this, and this. And obviously, you know, there are fundamental artistic concerns that people can have about any manner of artwork that are absolutely valid. I know that I'm not at the top of my game. I could definitely go back to school and learn to do things better because I'm self-taught. I'm a college dropout. But I've been doing illustration as a job for, you know, the lifetime of my daughter, who's about to turn 8 in January. So I'm by no means an expert. But when people tell me certain things about my artwork, I kind of just disregard it because I feel like what I'm creating is for a specific kind of person. I hope that the Venn diagram of who those people are isn't too narrow. So far with Black Mold, I've gotten a fairly decent response. But I just worry that like, you know, I'm a little bit too stubborn and a little too headstrong with the confidence that I have in our releases. And it's going to edge me out from finding, you know, maybe creating that game that is going to maybe have 1,000 backers or is going to have a 5 or 6 figure earnings on Kickstarter. You know, I've been in the indie space trying to run this publishing company as a small business, like with product actually to sell for only a year, but we've been at this leading up to our first Kickstarter in 2020 for about 6 years. And, you know, I'm not sure if I've cracked the code on figuring out how to get a game that's going to take us to that point where we are a profitable company, where I can start to pay my equity partners, people who are also doing a lot of work behind the scenes. But for the time being, like, we're producing games that we're excited about.
It's a hard journey, and I think that's the key thing, because being excited about your own projects and saying, you know what, I'm looking forward to playing that. That must be a blimmin' good feeling, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And with Black Mold, especially because there isn't a way to make a tabletop simulator that we can share remotely, it's been a lot of that.
Let me, I want to talk more about you as a person, but you mentioned that you're contractually obligated to get Black Mold out this year. I'd like to ask about that.
Sure, yeah. So we are a co-publisher with a company called Gigamet Games.
Okay.
That is also, they are a subsidiary or a partner company of Bridge Distribution based out of Marietta, Georgia. So the story with Black Mold is we are in business with a licensor named Michael Ristopoulos, who is based out of Greece. He asked us to join his client list for Token Terrors because he believed in that product. Gigamet Games saw the artwork and general direction of Black Mold at early stages after I ordered a Game Crafter copy, which had final art in it, and basically said they want exclusive distribution over Black Mold.
Is
Um,
that worldwide or is that for France?
that's just in North America.
Okay.
So they're in for Black Mold for a wholesale order to the tune of a couple thousand units. And we're going to run the Kickstarter. And then after we produce and manufacture, their allotment is going to go to them. And then direct buyer sales online are going to be excluded to just their sales avenues. Physical sales we can still do like at conventions or stuff, or like in our local network of friendly local game stores. We can sell, like, I can take it to Collector's Corner down the street or to No Land Beyond, and they can carry our stuff. But basically the deal that we did with them is they bought 2,000 units of token terrors to put in a distribution as sort of a cherry on top to get exclusive rights over Black Mold. And the parameters of that contract is that we need to deliver Black Mold within X time of the signing of the contract. And in order for us to meet that demand, in order for us to make good on our agreement with them, we need to fund Black Mold this year.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were aware, but Yogi, which is a design from me, is licensed by them, and they've got worldwide, publishing and distribution rights. And of course, Gigamic is a French company. So I expect that if that goes well, then they'll want to bring it into France, or that will be something that you're going to pursue down the line.
Wait, Gigamic Games?
Gigamic, like Gigamic, right?
Yeah, but I think it's mech like mechanism, like mech robot, like Gigamech.
Oh, I'm talking about this
Okay.
company.
Yeah, two different companies, very similar names though.
Are you talking about Gigamech? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Yep.
Okay, okay. So like that's
correct.
That's very different, because this company is pronounced Gigamic, but a lot of people mispronounce it as Gigamic.
Okay, what a coincidence.
That is really fascinating. But no, that's yeah. I'm glad that I asked about that. But like, that's really cool. Congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
I hope that it is able to help push you with your partner, and I hope that they are able to push it a little bit further than you are able to reach yourself, because ultimately that's the reason to partner with someone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sort of our rationality. I mean, obviously, from the industry side of things, if we already know that they're going to be getting X number of orders, we can sort of scale our cost during the Kickstarter campaign and try and pass off some of those. Say, like when we're scaling per unit cost, we can try to have the game price be competitive and attractive to people who are visiting us on Kickstarter. But the bigger gain for us as a company is that there's going to be, roughly 3,000 to 4,000 copies of Black Mold in the world that are going to eventually get sold. I mean, that they have to hit the table at some point. I don't think these guys are purchasing these wholesale orders to pop them into a warehouse and let them sit there. So,
yeah, to bury like a whole bunch of ET cartridges.
Yes, exactly. So in my head, I'm thinking like, this is great because there's more terrible games hitting people's tables, and people are going to be sharing in our experiences and our vision.
Okay, that has been fascinating. Back to the questionably quick questions. Podcasts or books?
Podcasts.
What was the last one you listened to?
I listened to this guy on, he started off as a TikToker and then moved to YouTube and then started doing a podcast. His name is Mr. Ballin. And he just does true crime stuff, just really odd, true crime stories that have unexpected surprise endings.
Awesome.
I just got done doing a 7-hour drive to and from Ohio to go visit Jesse Anderson to shoot some coverage for the Quack Club channel. And the entire car ride, both ways, I just listened to really scary stuff.
I want to know, what's the last game you played?
The last game I played was Magic last night before I went
Magic
to bed.
the Gathering. What colors do you play?
Oh my gosh, I was very angry actually last night. I've been playing in ranked matches for historic rules, which means the whole catalog of what's available on Magic the Gathering Arena is at your fingertips. But, you know, they have the whole chase model on there too. You have to open packs, you have to buy rares, all of that garbage. I am running a blue-black zombie exploit deck with an enchantment called Necro Duality, where basically if it starts to chain react, if it starts to combo, it goes from maybe 1 or 2 creatures to 15 or 16 in a single turn.
So it's kind of a control deck where you're stalling the board and making sure that you survive until you get all the pieces of your combo out, and it's like, boom! I can now finally kill you this turn.
Exactly. I basically need to turn the corner on turn 5 and get out Necro Duality. If I can do that, everything else, there is enough control. I have some nice zombies that when they do the exploit, if people aren't familiar with exploit, when something enters the battlefield, you have to kill another creature that's already in play. So I have all these little 1/1 weaklings that when they die, they do stuff to other stuff. I feel like it's effective, but man, I got so angry last night because I played this deck where the person I was playing against was just destroying land every turn. So for me, I understand Magic is 30 years old. It's doing a lot of different things, but any deck, and if anybody's watching this and you play Magic the Gathering, if you make a deck that just makes it so your opponent just doesn't do anything, they can't play any cards, every single thing they play either gets removed or canceled, or they just destroy mana, so you are sitting there with a full hand that you can't cast. I just don't think that's very fun. I think it's mean.
I kind of agree, but I think that's the nature of the game. I think that once you've signed up to play, you know, Legacy or Vintage or Historic, you kind of have to be open to land destruction decks because that's part of the game. And obviously, after, you know, the first few years, they dialed way back on that. Even Counterspell is like way over the line for what they do now. Like, they've got 1 extra mana because it's just, no, we don't want people to stop other people doing stuff, which I think is a good choice. And so they've gone for, yeah, well, you know, make big creatures more powerful, or, you know, other stuff more powerful where you're being a bit more aggressive. But yeah, I think that's, if you just sign up to play one of these non-rotating formats that includes stuff from way back, I'm not going to chide that person because, frankly, John, you kind of signed up for it.
No, you're right. You're right. After I finished my match yesterday, I got in bed and was like, well, I think it's about that time. I'm gonna uninstall Magic the Gathering from my computer. Not because I was that angry, but more because like it is a bit of a distraction. Like I'm clocking about an hour a day worth of playtime online, which is not too bad. But I have a Kickstarter coming up in about 20 days.
I mean, so fundamentally, the question is that hour a day recharging you? Do you get joy from it?
No.
Well, then the option is clear. Just,
exactly.
You made the right choice.
Exactly.
Because I think that you can, I mean, frankly, we spend many hours sleeping, and if you spend more time sleeping, that's good for you. You can't just, like, I could absolutely survive like one night on 0 sleep. I would have, you know, I'd be able to function the next day. But like, if I go too long without much sleep, I'm just going to shut down. I'm not going to be able to do much. And so you do need to do something to rest. I want to ask you, who would you recommend Magic the Gathering to? Would you actually recommend it to anyone, given the business model and everything?
Yeah, I would recommend it to anybody. It's the greatest game in the world.
Wow. Even though you just uninstalled it. That seems kind of contradictory.
Hold on. But there's a couple things to understand about Magic the Gathering. Number one, it's in the right setting. Okay, before I started playing Magic the Gathering online, and I was going up against the meta and dealing with decks that are specifically designed to just punish people, I was a kitchen table player, and I would meet up with my friends every week, and that was absolutely wonderful. You know, I would still get beaten and not be happy about it, and maybe have some mana drought and be really grumpy about it. But I was seeing my friends and I was having fun. More importantly, like, especially for anybody who's a designer, I think that Magic has so much to teach game designers, just an insane amount of knowledge to be mined from looking at deck construction and looking at key phrase usage and mechanic mixture. You know, somebody was like, hey, I'm just starting off designing board games. What would be, you know, some of your first advice? I'd be like, try out Magic. Like, get to the point in Magic where you can construct a deck and see how it plays.
I agree 100%. Have you listen to Mark Rosewater's Drive to Work at all?
No, but I have listened to a number of different people who are Magic the Gathering adjacent, like some some former pro players and some designers. I watch quite a bit of coverage when it comes to Magic. I watch The Professor all the time, and
Mhm.
but yeah, I've listened to a couple interviews with some people who have been involved with Magic on the design level.
Oh, I would absolutely recommend Mark Rosewater's podcast, Drive to Work, where back in the day, it was literally when they were driving to work. But then obviously pandemic started, then they did some at home. Now they actually do it again, some at home, some when they're driving to work, some when they're driving back from work, because they don't work that much in the office anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
But yes, some of them are, hey, this is how we made this thing. This is what it was like in the early days, which is really interesting from a, well, it's an important game and it's interesting to hear how it's developed. And some of it is like, hey, here's some things that every game needs. Let's talk about randomness. Hey, let's spend an episode talking about finessing cards and working out what's common and what's rare. And that kind of, even if you aren't making a collectible cards game, working out what should be more prevalent in your game, because there is a commonality of effects. Because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, also aside from that, speaking to like the artistic direction, I mean, there's sort of the pedigree IP when in the gaming world when it comes to a mixture of mechanism, flavor, and artistry. I mean, the caliber of
Mm-hmm.
artwork that's being made. I love looking at Magic cards; they're beautiful, and I love looking at how a specific character, like a legendary creature, or even a commander style character or a planeswalker, they just pack all of this story and lore and flavor and beautiful artwork, and they have a continuous thread of narration that is happening throughout all of these cards. It's huge.
That's what you get when you have all these resources, right? When
Yes.
you are basically the biggest top grossing physical game in the world, and
Hmm.
then you just get a ridiculous budget for artists, for people who are writing, for the designers, developers, everyone involved is doing a bang up job for that.
Hmm.
Um, I'd like to ask, yeah, a couple of things. So, firstly, terrible games. Is that because of token terrors?
Yeah.
Like Dar Terror? Oh, we're terrified. Like, are
Also,
all your games going to be quite horrific and scary and have a little bit of
no, no. We're working on a lot of our games are going to have like maybe battle related stuff. We seem to be gravitating towards 1v1 games for some reason. But for example, we have a game that is currently like very much in its infant stages that's called Project Shark Bite. And in this game, this is a 4x4 grid sort of movement programming and anticipation game where you are a researcher on a sea vessel that is trying to gather data on sharks. So sharks on transparent cards are going to swim by in this 4x4 grid of ocean. There's a shore deck that's going to populate the shore, and humans are going to interfere with things. Speedboat tournaments and surfers and lone swimmers are going to mess things up. So you're trying to collect enough data to meet the requirements of different grant applications, to earn the grants, to upgrade your ship, and the first player to complete 3 thesis papers is the winner of the game. There are multiple win conditions for how you get these thesis papers figured out. Like you need to share a space with a great white shark twice using an undersea camera. There's going to be weather conditions, but this is a game that is rooted in being educational. It is set up to shift the perspective and the idea that sharks are purely predators. They're not. They are animals that deserve conservation and deserve compassion,
wow.
and that they don't. They never attack. So my co-designer and the creator
They never
behind
attack.
the likelihood of a shark attack is so low that we are simulating it in this way in the game. I love this, by the way. This was the lead designer's idea, Lucas Gerace, sorry. So in this game, there's going to be a sea blue swirl 20-sided die. On the one side, which I guess is any of them, there's going to be a red insignia of a shark breaching the water. This is the shark attack die. Every other side is blank. So when
So you decided that there's about 5% chance of a shark attacking you if
that
you are
likely
right beside it.
yes, that likelihood is way, way higher than the reality. But we
So
want
if I was to go up to a shark in reality, could I pet the shark? Would it allow me to do that?
if you encounter a shark in the wild under certain conditions, you may get attacked, but it really depends on what kind of shark it is, and it depends, like the time of day, the other things that are happening in the ocean around it, different activities, the amount of light is going to affect whether or not the shark attacks you. But yeah, the probability of a shark biting somebody is very, very low, and we just like I think it's just like this really fun idea that we're gonna have this custom D20 that is blank except for this one outcome. I'm hoping that it creates some suspense, but it's also supposed to drive home this idea that like sharks are not these killing machines.
Mm-mm. Because I think there is a fear of the unknown. And of course, Jaws has done a lot to change the cultural perception of sharks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this one, what we hope people get out of it, and I think is another really kind of neat idea for this game, is that the sea life deck is going to be on transparent cards. So they're going to have movement AI programmed into the cards, and you'll be able to see down into the deck to anticipate what's coming. So as you play the game, you'll sort of get this loose understanding of the behavior of that particular creature by experiencing it moving across the board, and it'll have this predator rating and stuff. So that's the educational side, is like you'll be able to anticipate and learn what the behaviors of these different sharks are by playing the game.
No, I love it, and I love the fact that there's actually sort of a desire to impart a message because it's not beating you over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, there's no flavor text that says, "Hey, shark attacks are really unlikely," but maybe there's going. Do you think you'll put like a page in the rule sheet, like at the back, that says, "Oh, by the way, here's some realities and here's some facts about sharks"?
Yep.
Because I don't know, did you ever play Echo the Dolphin on the Sega Mega Drive? Or Genesis, as you call it?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
back in the right at the end, after, because back in the day, all the video games had actual instructions on paper, and then you read through it, and like, okay, now, but I'm not beside the game. I'm reading it like in the car or whatever, like while my parents are driving, and there's some facts about dolphins, and that's quite fun to read.
Yeah.
Like it's some supplemental information. I want to talk about being banned from Reddit because this is something that you were talking to Nalin about, where you said, "Hey, these are some tokens that I've got, some miniatures that I've got," and then people are like, "Oh, this is cool. Where can I get them?" And then you drop your own link, and apparently, like this was against the rules, but it wasn't super clear, and you got a lifetime ban. Can you talk a bit more about that, because I feel like that was almost glossed over.
I talked about it on a couple podcasts during the media circuit that we did for Token Terrors, because I was quite vocal about it on social media. So yeah, in their rules and practices document that is on a link in the masthead of the Reddit, you would click that link and you would read the rules, and then within that large scroll of rules, there was another link that talked about self-promotion, that did some more things. So it was a bit buried in that first opening scroll before I went deeper into more of their rules and regulations. I saw that I can't post direct links. I can't just say, "Hey, I got a Kickstarter coming up." So instead, I took some good photos of our Token Terrors prototypes and said, "Hey, I like playing Magic. I like playing token decks. We made these cool little miniatures. What do you think?" Open conversation, did not overtly plug anything. And it got like 22,500 upvotes, had like a couple hundred comments. Everybody was really liking it. And only when someone asked, "Where can I get these?" would I post a link to our preview page or whatever it was at the time. What angered me about the situation is that I was lifetime banned from the Magic the Gathering group, the largest one on Reddit, which has like 400,000 some odd people in it. I was never messaged anything. Nothing was explained to me. There was no warning shot of any kind where they were like, "Hey, you're new. Don't do this again. Otherwise, you're done."
Like, had you already interacted? Like, you talked about the 10-to-1 rule, where you kind of tell people about other stuff. Had you already been doing that?
Nah, not really. But you know what? The 10-to-1 rule, as it existed on like different Facebook groups, I was sort of aware of. I'm not gonna lie about like how I absolutely did not ingratiate myself in an honest way
Mm-mm.
to that community before I started dropping hints that we had a product that I wanted to sell them. So, maybe the moderators saw that and they saw right through my move and didn't think it was warranted to have a conversation with me about their rules and regulations.
I mean,
A
it's
lifetime ban
tough.
seems pretty harsh. I gotta say, like, uh,
Like
it
you
does
can
it doesn't.
always make a new account with a new email address, I guess.
I
Or is it an
suppose
IP? It's not an IP ban, is it? It's just like for that account.
I'm not really sure. Here's what I'll say is after that experience, I haven't gone back to Reddit. I don't, my spouse uses Reddit all the time. I just recently saw a thing. I saw a promoted ad on Facebook that was this thing that was like, hey, like buy ads and market on Reddit. And all these people were just like, what are you talking about? No one wants to be sold to on Reddit. And I was in the comments. I was like, oh, you want me to pay for marketing and ad space on the most stringent and like militantly enforced site that basically bans people instantly if you try to market in their groups? This is where you want me to pay for marketing? You're crazy. No one wants to be marketed to in Reddit, and they don't want to be marketed there so badly that if you try to do it and you don't follow their very specific, very detail oriented number of rules, you will be shown the door immediately with no warning. This is it's the barrier of entry to actually be able to talk to people about your projects
Mhm.
on Reddit is so high that I just don't want to mess with it. I I'm already scared off from just being as active and like hypnotized by the amount of social media stuff I have to do already. I don't
Mm-mm-mm.
if something is pushing
It's a
me away,
lot.
yeah, if Reddit is already like don't bring that over here, then fine. Like that's it. I'm not gonna keep on like trying to kick my way in. If they're making it difficult, then
I
I
mean,
I have other places to invest
anger
my
and
time.
frustration aside, I can totally get because, yeah, lifetime ban. Wow, that feels really personal. But it sounds like while it was up there, as you've mentioned, you did get a lot of backers for it, and so it did actually do you good for that campaign.
Maybe I don't. I'm not sure if they remove the post altogether. They might have done that. This was years ago. But recently, like I tried to go back to Reddit and get into like some of the board game design groups, and right away, like I went to post an image of some artwork and talk to people about the art and talk about the game, and I immediately the post was immediately taken down, and a link was sent to me involving rules about like you can't share images, you have to share links to images or something. I don't I don't know, but again, I went back to Reddit and tried to just engage and was told no again.
That's interesting because normally I would think a link to an image is kind of worse than here's the image. You don't need to go anywhere to see the stuff. Here
I
it is, so the
you know
conversation can be here.
I think it's something about how like they want you to upload the image to Imager,
Okay.
and then like you need to take the image from once it's uploaded to Imager, then you can post it in the Reddit feed. I'm not really sure, but all basically the point is that like every time I've tried to go to Reddit and figure out how to sort of crack the code on getting involved there and talking to people, I have been pushed away a lot of times. So
Mm-mm.
I'm just gonna not do it anymore.
That's fair. Like, how do you decide what social medias to go on? Because you seem to have a fairly decent. You seem to focus primarily on Facebook. Like, you've not really got much Twitter stuff at all. Like, you've got a personal thing, but not a company thing. How do you decide what to focus on there?
It's really a bit of a lift just to get regular social media stuff out. I'm spreading most of my energy between Instagram and Facebook, and that's because that's just where I'm familiar. I started dabbling into Twitter, um, but it's it's a little much for me to try and actually build a followership there. I feel like if you want to go from square one where you have nobody looking at you to a decent audience, it's got to be very focused work. and you have to sort of like find the right formula in order to get to where you want to go. And honestly, like I'll just be real with you. Like a lot of what social media marketing is about makes me feel sort of phony and weird. Um, I understand that I have to like break through the algorithm and get more eyes on my stuff in order to market it. But at the end of the day, all these companies are trying to do is gatekeep us out of being able to promote organically. They want us to start paying them for ads. They want to figure out a way to monetize our projects so that they can turn them into money for them. And, I'm playing that game this time around with Black Mold because I kind of have to, but I remember back in like 2008 on Facebook where like a mom and pop bakery could have a page on Facebook with 20,000 followers that they never paid for. I remember before there was paid marketing on Facebook, there was organic it was actually like tribe building. It was people being excited about what they're working on and other people just supporting them. It would be nice to get back there, but that's
a sad reality of
Yep.
the fact that all these social media sites are, they're for profit. They're not for, hey, here's a free space. It's not like going to the park or to the library and meeting people, or, if you come to one of our playtests, we don't want people to be there with a finished game, but it's not for promotion, it's for playtesting. But the idea isn't that, hey, we're going to charge you. The idea, frankly, is reciprocation. And I think it's always, people are getting something out of everything. And the question is, what are people getting out of it? And yeah, hello, Saints. We're just about to finish up. And I want to, there's so much more that we could have chatted about that I don't think we've really got time for, because I would have loved to chat to you about, your music, your general illustration work, and how you got into that. But before we finish up, what would you say are some of your favorite things in life other than playing board games?
Well, I mean, playing music is definitely one of them. I'm in a band called Cowabunga Pizza Time. I play drums in another band called Haze Mage. These respectfully are like punk metal bands and stoner metal bands. I also recently got into some smaller projects that were little one-off acts, doing like some jazz covers of Guar, which is really fun. But yeah, I really love the camaraderie and the teamwork and the joking around that comes along with putting together a band and just getting on stage and just vibing and like pushing out energy and effort and being excited about music and having your friends show up to a show and really support you and everybody having a great time. Also, I do really enjoy cooking, as I mentioned earlier. I really like getting into trying out new dishes and experimenting with new ingredients and trying to, educate my daughter on being more open-minded to different types of food. So yeah, and also I love my boy Goblin over here who's sleeping.
Aw, that sounds lovely. And yeah, I think that I can appreciate the music, Sate can appreciate the cooking, and that's a lot of stuff to enjoy in life. And I hope you keep having a good life.
Thank you very
Um,
much. Same to you.
I'd like to talk just a wee bit about the latest project before we wrap up. So, if people want to check it out, why are you putting out this game? I mean, what makes, I mean, not what, why we should back it, but I want to ask you firstly, why are you passionate about this project?
Um,
Why are
because
you
it's
not just doing more, miniatures?
we're going to do more miniatures.
Yeah,
We're
but
gonna
why are you not just doing more miniatures? Why are you doing this at all?
So something that we had touched on it earlier, that we have a deal with Gigamet Games. Basically, like I produced this game during lockdown. The inspiration for this game, I think, was directly derived from a reality where breathing felt dangerous, where being around a lot of people felt kind of claustrophobic. I had just started, or I had just finished playing this game called Last of Us, which has mushroom zombies in it. So all of these things sort of confluence together while I was watching this documentary about board game design called The Game Masters. It's on Netflix. It's absolutely wonderful if you haven't seen it. But there was a designer talking about creating a mechanism or something in your game that felt novel or original. which I think the idea of novelty or originality in today's creative space is very, very hard to attain, nearly impossible. Everything is sort of borrowed from something. So the inspiration for Black Mold kind of hit me in the head. I was like, we should make I need to think of something cool or something different. How about a game where your turn lasts as long as you can hold your breath? The title Black Mold just hit me in the head. Me and my co-designer Phil Docolo got a really rough hand-done prototype to the table. We were looking at the basic mechanics that Phil had designed and were really just kind of floored by our reaction and how we were like, I was holding my breath during Phil's turns. Like it was an involuntary action where the suspense of seeing what Phil was going to do during his turn was making me hold my breath. We thought we really had something special in our hands, and I was locked in the house. So I immediately went to the Game Crafter, downloaded a couple templates, and pumped out an art package in about 10 days, got a finished looking prototype to the table. We played it, thought, hey, this is great. And then Gigamet came along after they saw this very early version. They were like, we want to release this game. So the whole thing got fast tracked. We started playtesting it. And I think the thing that's great about it is, like, as I mentioned before, we've internally tested this thing to death. We can't do remote playtest because of the frenetic physical actions that you have to take in order to actually play the game. We can't have it on Tabletop Simulator. So we play tested a bunch. Every experience is different. We've had a rotating door of different people who are local friends of ours who have come in and played it. They've all said that they love it. It's a different experience each time, different choices. And the game is not a game where you play to win. You play to play. It's an experience. And it's about that table talk. It's about some of that sort of take that mentality where you're sort of looking over your shoulder at the other people at the table being like, can I trust you? Are you going to make the right decisions to get us out of this situation? And we really we want to try and impart to people that the breath holding thing is about immersion, and it's about setting an atmosphere and a mindset of, yes, we do want it to feel harrowing, and we want it to feel a little intense and maybe a little anxious, but transporting people into that world, I think, is going to be very entertaining, despite the fact that, some of those descriptors maybe sound a little, they're not super flowery, fun, happy time.
Yeah, I mean, people go to watch horror films, and, sometimes you don't always listen to pop music. Sometimes you listen to metal or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want a different atmosphere.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing for the second question, who would you recommend it to? Like, anyone who wants that kind of immersion, and is entranced by the gimmick of lasting as long as you can hold your breath. And I'm all here for this.
Yeah, thank you. And a couple of things I would like to note. We do include a 60-second sand timer in the game. So for people who maybe have breathing difficulties or are just uncomfortable holding their breath, we include a way for you to still have that real-time element without having to actually do the physical part of it. Additionally, in order to lend more to the texture and the world that we have built inside of the universe of Black Mold, we had a wonderful dungeon synth artist named Vandalorum produce an original soundtrack for us that you can listen to while you play. And, the monochromatic sort of death metal art style might not be for everybody, but we really feel that, like, the bleak look of it really does transport you into the terrifying world that the Black Mold inhabits.
That sounds fantastic. And as we talked about, Escape the Dark Castle and everything right at the start, I think and nothing is for everyone. I think it's absolutely the right choice to just go all out on this. Hey, nothing else looks like it. You see that image, and hope to get to see this person someday. But before we finish up, I would like you to ask me and anyone watching a question. Question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Is there something that you would like to ask me or anyone watching?
No, I don't think so. I can't really think of any questions. I'm sort of in reaction mode. It's still only like 6 a.m. here.
That's totally fair. I'm going to pump out the question of the day, which is, how much metal do you listen to, and what's the last metal album or song that you can remember? I don't listen to that much metal, to be honest. I did listen to a couple of albums after I watched a film, like some proper old school metal, like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden. Quite
Great.
enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm interested in other people. What is the last thing that you can remember enjoying? Or if you don't enjoy metal at all, let us know. How about you, John?
Okay, I'm gonna backpedal. My question is, why are you not listening to more metal? Uh, Look, modern metal is just classical music. Okay, it's classical music with filters. Um, the musicianship, the artistry, and the technicality of what they're playing is just far and above what you hear in pop music, what you're hearing in more conventional mass marketed music. The last thing I listened to, I've been listening to the newest Andrew WK album, which is called God is Partying. It's an excellent, much darker album than he's done before. I don't know if you're familiar with Andrew WK, but he is like this very explosive artist who does a lot of stuff about like partying all the time. But his
So this
newest,
is someone you'd recommend, Andrew WK.
I would wholeheartedly recommend Andrew WK. His music, a lot of his earlier work is very exuberant. It is maximalist rock and roll, but his most recent album really does lean into a more metal sounding sort of genre, which I love. I also listen to a lot of like Skeleton Witch, Veil of Nath, lots of different metal. I listen to metal pretty much all the time, unless I'm listening to like punk or straight rock and roll. I mean, I do have a very eclectic style. I listen to hip hop. I listen to everything, but mostly dominated by stoner and deathcore metal is what I usually listen to.
Wow. So everyone else, let us know how you relate to metal. Do you listen to it? Do you not listen to it? I mean, honestly, if you don't enjoy it, that's okay. Like nothing's for everyone, and we're not here to say, "Oh no, you must do this." I mean, even though John is kind of got strong opinions,
I I
and
I do, and I'll add. I'd like to add one more thing about the genre of metal. When you're listening to it, try to absorb the voice, the singing. If you're hearing that, that's not supposed to sound pretty. It's another texture. It's
mm,
there to fill in the musical composition. I understand that stylistic choice isn't for everybody, but try to absorb it as another instrument.
and J Fool's Guard says, "I've never really found any genre or bands that clicked." So
Judas Priest.
okay.
Listen to Judas Priest.
And hello, good morning, Alex. And I'm curious about your metal leanings. But at this point, as I always ask, is over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. I am going to finish off my artwork that I showed earlier. I'm going to do this very quickly. I have to send it off. Um, and I'm just going to add the reds and the greens and then a quick few details of color, and then that will be it. And yeah, hopefully that will be something that in 3 weeks' time will be a reality, and I'll be selling it at the next convention. Um, and other than that, that's basically all my plans. Yeah, have a little bit of posting to do, might do a bit of playtesting, and I've got a somewhat exciting online meeting that I can't talk too much about.
Ooh.
But yeah, what is everyone else up to? J Fool's Guard is currently making a quick lunch pizza. John, what are you up to after this?
Oh, I'm gonna take the boy out for a walk. Then I'm gonna clean the kitchen and make lunch and breakfast for my daughter, and then take her to school. And then I gotta come back home and hit the desk. Um,
Awesome.
yep, I'm at my desk right now. I'm gonna fire up my tablet. Maybe I'll work on some commission work because I'm currently broke, or maybe I'll finally get started on the graphics package for the Kickstarter scroll for Black Mold. Time will tell. I'm not gonna be playing any Magic today.
Do something.
That's
I
right.
wish you being good and productive and excellent.
Same
To
to you.
recap and wrap up before we finish up, we talked about so much today. We talked about making Kickstarters. We talked about videos where, at an 80s style, you're transported into, well, not you, but the character on the screen is transported into this stuff, and it's going to look amazing. I'm looking forward to it. We talked a little bit about working with amazing people and leaning onto their innate skills and talents. We talked about cast iron cookware. We talked about mixing together the broccoli, the garlic, the oil, a bit of ramen with the sesame oil and the oyster sauce. We talked about the joy of minis and toys being something that John kind of relates to and feels more with rather than the rules. Whereas I'm all about, okay, here's a web of rules. Let's think about how it all interacts. But it's all about what sparks that feeling and that emotion in you. Talking about something being super labor intensive, whereas my art might look rushed because it kind of is rushed, because I'm going to have done 50 images in less than a day, which is quite a bit. And but spend time when it's appropriate. We talked about Spellbook, we talked about Gigamech, which is a completely different company to Gigamech. So that's Gigamech and that's Gigamech, which is really interesting. We talked about, Mr. Ballin, like scary podcasts. We talked about being annoyed with land destruction in Magic the Gathering, finding sometimes that it's not bringing joy into you and you've got to just, delete it or get rid of everything. Talking about the likelihood of shark attacks being less than 1 in 20. Like even a 1 in 20 die roll is way more than the reality. Talking about Metal People, Andrew WK, Skeleton Witch, Veil of Nath, and also talking about finding your hook, finding the key thing of holding your breath, and then all bringing about all this tension. Is there anything else that you would like to shout out about?
Support indie publishers. If you see a game that looks good, back their project on Kickstarter. We are one of those people, and we hope that we see you on October 20th for Black Mold.
Awesome. Alex wants to ask, does Opeth count?
Absolutely, Opeth counts.
And Sate says, I would absolutely roll Shark Attack every single time. Luck is like that sometimes.
Let's wait and see. We'll wait and see. I'm really interested to start rolling this D20 that is blank on all sides but one and see how much suspense waits for me when these rolls happen.
If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all the places. If you want to find out about future streams, go to stuffbybez.com/streams. And of course, if you want to check out John, then check out the Kickstarter projects, Token Terrors, Black Mold, and just check out all the other places. And at this point, I just want to say, share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, John, for getting up ridiculously early. Thank you, everyone, for being in the audience. And at this point, is there anything, last words you would like to say?
Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Well, you're number one. I'm only number one when it's bad, says Xate. Love that. Well, as always, I'm going to just say bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye,
yes.
bye, bye, bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone.